Hello, beautiful humans. I just wanted to do a quick update for the Leo new moon. And I felt drawn to do this because I do feel like the energy is really shifting for us. Myself and quite a few people that I know, it's been a really interesting summer so far. The energy, despite typically summer being hot and busy and fast, and yes, it was hot, but as far as our energy goes, usually we are more social, we are out there, we are doing things, we're connecting, and a lot of us had been drawing back. We've been going into our shell, and we've seen a lot more things that really needed to be addressed and tended to. Myself, I had a lot of old stories that I needed to see, that needed to come up to the surface so I could integrate them and heal them again. And I say again because sometimes the work is never done. So I just wanted to pull a few cards and see what is up for us. But in general, the new moon is about readdressing your intentions. What are you focused on as far as your goals, what you are trying to create. It is a time for newness. So whatever isn't serving you right now, it's time to let that go, and don't be afraid to make a new plan. Okay, so I wanted to pull a few different cards. So as a collective, who do we need to be? And especially I want to say as women, what aspect of ourselves do we need to bring to the forefront going forward this month? What aspect of ourselves do we need to embrace? Do we need to integrate? Do we need to see? Okay, this one comes up so often when I do readings. So this is the King. This is a very masculine card, and there's a lot of talk about women very much stepping into our divine feminine. So this is the way that I interpret this particular card. I see this as embracing your strength and your royalty. So if you think of a king and his kingdom, not everyone has access to him. He's not out there like socializing with his, community, his kingdom, his servants. He might only have a handful of people, his closest confidants, that have access to him. So he has really, really strong boundaries. So embracing this aspect of yourself, and it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be in your masculine energy, but it's about protecting your feminine energy. Who has access to you? Who have you outgrown? Whose energy no longer belongs in your space? Who do you feel good around? Who do you feel not so great around, or even terrible around? You do not need to continue to socialize or spend time with those people, or think about strongly limiting that connection. And another thing I will say about this is nature. So really spend time in nature. Think about the more of the bark of the tree and the roots. So you really want to think of putting your root system down into the earth. And yes, that is connecting into the feminine and Mother Earth. But the bark is actually what is holding the tree together. It is what allows the nutrients to come through. It allows that movement, that nurturing, that fullness to happen, right? And if that strength and that bark wasn't there, everything would just sort of seep out. And again, if you're one who gives up your energy or emotions to others, your time, etc., that's something to think about. So this is like really, really strong boundaries right now. Okay? All right. So I'm going to pick a few more cards just to add a few more layers to what I've already said. So what might we need to know about our energy, about resetting our intentions and goals for this month. Okay. One more. Interesting. Okay. So, 2 cards. So I feel like some of this is on its way out. So we have 4 of Cups, and I feel like some of us are still carrying some of this heavy emotional energy that still might be weighing on you as well. So allow yourself to spend some time journaling. If you need to do a burning ceremony and burn some of those words, allow yourself to do what you need to get those emotions out so they're not living inside of you. Allow this next cycle to feel lighter. Okay? And then we also have Spirit of Water. So explosive mental disharmony. So this is the water element. And so when we're in harmony, typically our thoughts, we're at peace. We are calm. We are centered. So this is like our minds also might be getting caught in repetitive cycles that might bring up fear, that might bring up anxiety, that might bring up overwhelm. So really pay attention as well to your thoughts. And is there a connection between your emotions and your thought process? Right? So think about if you're feeling really heavy still, if you still have some of those heavier emotions with you, does that then turn into repetitive thoughts about the past or how things are never going to work out in the future, for instance? Or does it happen the other way around? Is it more about your thinking about the present moment or the future, and then that goes back into the past and you relive some of those heavier stories and emotions? So pay attention to the connection between the two. And really try to pay attention to what you're feeling, what needs to be released. Sometimes movement helps. Again, I mentioned writing. Sometimes it can be meditation, but I find sometimes we need to move things through and out. And the other thing is paying attention, again, to your thoughts. Allow yourself to kind of short circuit. If you're starting to go into those loops and those patterns, okay, what new thought process am I going to take in for myself so I can feel better, so I can begin to think more positively or clearly, or even, if nothing else, from a neutral place rather than, oh my God, everything's going to hit the fan, for instance, or it's never going to be XYZ, right? So allow yourself to really be clear and pay attention. And again, that ties back into boundaries. Even having those inner boundaries with yourself. How long am I going to allow myself to dwell on this? How long am I going to stay stuck in these practices? Are there certain people that trigger me feeling a certain way or thinking a certain way, right? So if you have boundaries with yourself, you're also calling yourself out on, okay, it's time to change these emotional and thinking habits, because they do become habits, right? Okay. And then finally, what part of our body might need to be addressed? So I love this deck. This is Energy Archaeology. So is there something, part of our body that might need to be addressed, which then connects to a certain emotional state? Is there something that will help us to release, to clear, so we can really set this Leo new moon as a fresh start for us, entering more of that fiery energy, the doing energy, the more, may you say, masculine energy? What needs to be addressed? Okay, interesting. Okay, so this is capacity. So I'm trying to show you that. So this is the spinal column and the rib cage. So as soon as I think of capacity, I am thinking about capacity for the uncomfortable emotions. And also when I talked about the boundaries, again, that's sort of like our skin, our musculature, for instance. So that is holding everything together. Can we actually create more capacity for ourselves to feel and witness and observe without getting totally taken down into sadness, depression, heaviness? And sometimes when it comes to setting those boundaries, we need to have a greater capacity to feel uncomfortable. When we start to say no, or you don't belong in my life anymore, or this isn't serving me, you're going to perhaps have those emotions come up around guilt, around, again, people pleasing, if that is very typical for you. Other things might come up too. Can you create more of a capacity within yourself to feel uncomfortable? And sometimes we're uncomfortable because people don't understand where we're coming from, right? Especially if you are sensitive. So also notice here, it's the rib cage. So capacity is breath. So breath work can be really, really potent here as far as taking up space, making space for yourself, and then with the exhale, allowing yourself to release, right? So taking in or creating space to feel, and then as you exhale, letting things go. All right, so new moon, hopefully this is helpful for you to be able to clear out, to set some new intentions. What are your boundaries? Looking at your thought processes. What thoughts are you allowing going forward? What emotions are you allowing going forward? And sometimes, again, we can't help what we think or we feel, but how do we have more or greater inner boundaries? So we are short-circuiting some of those negative thought patterns before we begin to loop, and then it affects our life, our friendships, our work, etc., etc. How can we create a better story or a new story about what's coming for us, right? So hopefully that was helpful. I do feel like overall things are getting lighter and easier again. I mean, the outside world is always a different story, but I feel like for some of us personally, especially if the last month or so was really, really heavy, I feel like there's a new energy, a new lightness coming. If you need any help and any support, please contact me. I offer distance healing sessions. I do readings together if you are local or via distance. So don't hesitate to reach out. I have been through it all, my friend. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed. Let me know how it goes.